the teaching that the Tibetan gives on the 7 rays and on esoteric astrology gives us techniques to build in those qualities. We come to learn through a study of our rays and through a study of our astrological charts where our hindrances are and where our strengths are. And so we build in the strengths. All true teachers will never tell you to focus on the hindrances. They'll always tell you to focus on the strengths. And I was discussing things like this yesterday with a friend, dealing with my own issues. And he sent me a very interesting article that was in the New York Times a couple of years ago, which received a very overwhelming response. And so I thought I would mention it because I found it very helpful as a reminder. Because basically, the gist of the article was that we're not much different than the animal kingdom when it comes to learning and overcoming things and changing for the better. And the woman who wrote the article advised us, therefore, to start working with one another the way trainers work with animals. Treat our fellow travelers on the path and ourselves the way animal trainers treat the animals. How do they affect change in animals? Positive reinforcement. Food, usually. I said I'm going to start carrying cookies around with me, you know? Instead of dealing with the problematic people in our lives by running over and over in our head why they're driving us crazy, this article said, try another approach. Try the approach of the animal trainers and only reward and only mention when these people in our lives do something positive. Then state to them, quite emphatically, I really liked what you did for me. I really liked that you were kind to me. I really liked that you picked up your socks. And she said, just keep persistently encouraging good behavior and dramatically ignoring any negative behavior. Instead of the usual way we approach people by constantly asking them to change, constantly demanding that they meet our standards, and being upset when they don't, and frustrated. So the Tibetan puts it rather beautifully and simply, better a man's own dharma than the dharma of another, reminding us all to mind our own business. Better a man's own dharma than the dharma of another. We can only change ourselves. So these, I think, are some of the lessons of the emotional body. Another way to look at it that I find helpful is to remember the labor of Hercules for the sign of Scorpio. I don't know if any of you have read those labors. The one for Scorpio was the preeminent labor, in a sense. Scorpio is, the Tibetan says, the greatest experience on the path. The greatest experience is undertaken in Scorpio. The most tests are undertaken in Scorpio. And it doesn't mean you have to be born under that sign. He says that all seekers today are fundamentally under the influence of Scorpio. He's conditioning us as a group. So we're all being tested by Scorpio. The challenges of Scorpio. So how did Scorpio triumph? And how did Hercules triumph in the Scorpio labor? If you know that labor, it was, I don't know it well, but there was a hydra, a seething hydra hidden in a cave, a dark cave. And Hercules was asked to destroy that seething hydra. So first he had to get it out of the cave so he could destroy it. So he shot some arrows into the cave. And that was sort of the fiery aspiration. He took action. He didn't just sit outside the cave and meditate. He shot the arrows in and provoked that hydra, that sleeping hydra. And he came out seething with 9 heads. You here for that? Broken. Well, anyway, the story goes on, and Hercules, every time he cut off one head, 2 sprouted back. Symbolic of every time we try to get rid of a fault by cutting it out of our life, it comes back in bigger fury with another head right next to it. So he was quite frustrated by this, and only when he kneeled down in humility, we say, humility was the real lesson, the triumph of the labor, was kneeling down. And as someone said in a talk that I heard the other night, the personality is our biggest challenge on the spiritual path. This personality, this strong ego that we all have, that's the biggest challenge. That's the real lesson of all spiritual teachings, is to overcome that hydra, that ego that has 9 heads, that every time we try and correct 2 more sprout. It's not easy to overcome the personality, especially in a world like ours where the personality is the focus of everything. Personality is emblazoned in Western civilization. So we're being asked to turn another way. It's not easy in our world. It's not easy to be that man on the subway platform just playing. You're supposed to be out there marketing your CDs and getting an agent. And you're not supposed to just be sitting there